Welcome to Vintage Video's latest What's New. And with us celebrating and remembering on April the 14th and 15th, not only the sinking of the Titanic, but the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, I thought we would start with DVD titles on each subject. First of all, American Experience, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. James Agee's omnibus, Mr. Lincoln and the Civil War. You won't believe this one. A plot stealing Lincoln's body. The Day Lincoln Was Shot. Fabulous movie from the 40s with Dick Powell, The Tall Target. Disney's Johnny Shiloh. These are just a few of the many titles we have in our Civil War Abraham Lincoln section. Moving on to the Titanic. Of course, the definitive A Night to Remember. The German 1943 propaganda movie that Goebbels banned, Titanic. The miniseries Titanic, written by Julian Fellows of, let's hear it folks, Downton Abbey fame. Next, Titanic with Clifton Webb and Barbara Stanwyck. And two related films, The Wreck of the Mary Dear, and one that we're just temporarily sold out of, The Last Voyage, with Robert Stack and Dorothy Malone. Now, moving on to gift sets. Try and find this, folks. The complete Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp. I know that so many of you had bought seasons 1 and 2, and then we waited and waited and waited and waited for seasons 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then what did they do? They didn't release them individually, just as a set. The complete Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis film collection on 2 sets. For those of you who are old enough to remember, Rocket Robin Hood. The complete Andy Hardy movies on 2 volumes. Now this one is very, very special. We finally were able to get the Quatermass collection, not the films, but the British and Canadian television series from the 50s. It's springtime, folks, so let's all head to the beach with Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon. All of their beach movies. How can you possibly live without this? Tombstone Territory. Been waiting for this one for a long time. The only other TV series that Chuck Connors did, Branded. I love this series, Jeeves and Wooster. How can anybody be this dumb as Wooster, Bertie Wooster? The complete Johnny Quest. One of the underrated but fabulous spooky series of the 50s, One Step Beyond. The complete series. Audrey Hepburn collection. It's hard to imagine that anyone was as beautiful as Audrey Hepburn was, not only when she was young, but as she got on in years too. What a lady. Johnny Carson. Nothing I can say. And finally, for the sets, 10 Red Skelton movies of the 40s and early 50s. And now for some individual new titles. Douglas Fairbanks, Sinbad the Sailor. Probably the only pirate musical, but it's fabulous. Donald O'Connor, Double Crossbones. Cult of the Cobra. 50s. It's fabulous. Oh, getting back to pirates. Buccaneer's Girl with Yvonne DiCarlo. Personally, I've been waiting for this one for a long time. Bomber B-52. Carl Malden, Natalie Wood. Orson Welles, Macbeth. Some Gary Coopers. Dallas. Springfield Rifle. The Fountainhead. We also have the 8 Mr. Moto titles with Peter Lorre. The Bamboo Saucer. First time this has ever been out. To the best of my knowledge, never on VHS. What can you say about Peter Sellers and The Party? Perhaps there's quite a few people who are not aware of this wonderful Jack Clayton movie filmed in England with Dirk Bogarde called Our Mother's House. The story of a family who has a very, very ill mother who unfortunately passes away, and they're so terrified that the community services are going to come and split them up. They bury her in the backyard. It's not a spooky movie. It's just a wonderful, wonderful, makes you feel good film. You wonder how that can happen, especially when the father comes back who hasn't been in the picture for a long time, played by Dirk Bogarde. Perhaps one of the best things about this movie is the Georges Delerue score. It'll break your heart. One of the few Humphrey Bogart movies that was never released on VHS, The Big Shot, 1942 from Warner Brothers. Great Robert Ryan, Stuart Granger crime movie, The Crooked Road. Never been out before. William Holden, Sophia Loren, The Key. Just a reminder, we have the uncut The Devils with Oliver Reed. The last film that the Goebbels Ministry of Propaganda did, called Coburg. The battle scenes at the end cost Germany so much, not only in money, but the number of soldiers that they had to pull from the front lines so that they could make this film. The visuals are unbelievable. Randolph Scott, The Return of the Badmen. Richard Widmark, Anthony Quinn, Warlock. Cecil B. DeMille, Barbara Stanwyck, Joel McRae, Union Pacific. 4 fabulous bogies. Before I Hang and The Boogeyman Will Get You. The Black Room and The Man They Could Not Hang. Finally, The Glass Key. Alan Ladd, Veronica Lake, Brian Dunleavy. Next, I want to show you some product that has been part of my collection that I have decided that I am going to sell. In the early and mid 60s, Jonathan Cape out of England did a series of what was referred to as historical portfolios called jackdaws. And jackdaws were a collection of documents pertaining to a historical event that were reproduced faithfully. Sometimes the exact look, if it was on parchment, when you held up the document that was included in the set, it looked like it was parchment. I have about 150 titles, and these are just a few. Britain at War. In this, you got an illustrated map showing the bombing casualties of Britain, a complete edition of the Daily Mirror, February 5th, 1942, pages from a rationing book, advice from the Ministry of Food to cooks, a registration order for boys and girls calling them to register, and if they've got spare time, to join the junior services. A script for the ITMA, the popular radio program, Dig for Victory, a poster, another poster entitled Careless Talk Costs Lives. Now, with the popularity of the new program called Wolf Hall, I thought I'd show you some titles in the jackdaws pertaining to Henry VIII. Cardinal Wolsey, Sir Thomas More, and then two other ones, the Spanish Inquisition and Asian Corps. These are just a few of the many titles that we have from my own collection. Next, we have the series of children's books that I have been collecting over the last 50 years. Anybody who knows children's book knows that the Landmark books were really the landmark for juvenile publication in hardcover. I have approximately 200 titles. Ulysses, John F. Kennedy, PT 109, and Davy Crockett, From the Tennessee Backwoods to the Alamo. Now these are just 3 titles of the wonderful series of children's book called Landmark. I've also decided to sell my box sets of Batman and Superman. I've had these probably 10, 15 years. The first one, Superman, the Masterpiece Collection, has a reproduction of the first original comic book, a hardcover book giving the history of Superman, but what everybody wanted in these 2 sets was the figure. This figure is of the early Superman, late 30s, early 40s, called the classic costume. And now we have Batman, my favorite, again, a reproduction of the first comic book, a hardcover book outlining the history of Batman in print, and a figure with the original Bob Kane costuming of Batman with the pointed ears. I love this figure. And finally, a new part that we're going to have on our What's New. By then, sets of probably the most awaited 60s TV series ever. Not going to tell you what it is. You're either going to have to phone the store or wait until we have our next What's New. We're also going to have Girl from U.N.C.L.E., the complete TV series, Forbidden Hollywood number 8, 20 newly released serials, cliffhangers, and going to introduce you to 2 of our staff. See you next time. Bye.